Now, it is no secret that I am not a huge fan of capitalism. Though the current version is clearly a lot better than the one that Marx left that very scathing would not recommend Steam review for a couple years ago, it's still not the best version that we have had, and it is far from the best version that we could have. And just to be clear, I don't believe in capitalism, I don't believe in communism. I don't like ideology and political labels. I like policy and just people doing things, and boy oh boy are we seeing some of that right now. Mostly average Reddit users are taking the bet that some of the most cancerous tumor growths of capitalist Wall Street put their money on, and they're winning. Let me explain to you what's going on here, because if you're not into finance, this can be a little confusing. Even I, who I generally have a pretty decent grasp of how economics works, had to read up on some of the terminology, because the stock market is a very specialized subsection of the economy that does very specific things. They have like their own language, which is sometimes only vaguely connected to the rest of the thing. Legal disclaimer, very important, of course, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not an economist, I'm not a lawyer either. If you're gonna do something, inform yourself and, make your own decisions as a free agent. So the classic move in investing, right, is you look at a stock and you think, I think this stock is going to become more valuable in the future. So you buy the stock, and then at a point in the future, when it has become more valuable, you sell it and you pocket the difference. However, you can also do the opposite and essentially invest against the success of a stock if you think it is going to go down in the future. This is called shorting. Basically, imagine this, right? So I think the stock of the Irish East India Company is going to go down in value, and so I want to short it. So what I do is I borrow a stock for the Irish East India Company from you, because you just happen to have one of those. Now I sell this stock on the market for, say, $100. Now, I don't have a stock, but I have $100, and you have an IOU that entitles you to receiving one stock from the Irish East India Company after a certain period of time that we decided on when I got the stock. It can be theoretically 3 days to like 10 years. Usually it's a very intermediate, maybe 3-month area, 1-month area. It varies dramatically. So if I'm right, after a certain period of time, which let's say for our contract it was 3 months where I have to give you the stock back, the price of the stock went down. So I take my $100 that I made from selling your stock and buy it back for, say, $70. I give you the stock back because it's your stock, and I have made $30 of difference because I sold your stock at a higher price than it was eventually worth when I bought it back. Here's the thing though, I might be wrong. The stock market is, in many ways, effectively just gambling, and there are always risks involved. So no matter in which direction the stock of the Irish East India Company goes, I owe you that stock back because I borrowed it from you after a certain period of time. And if the price goes up to, say, $130, I now have to pay $130 from the original only $100 that I made on the sale of that stock. So I lose $30 because I need to give you back your stock. In actuality, this just tends to happen through like brokers. I tell my broker I want to, short that stock. My broker finds someone to borrow. Very often brokers have their own inventory of stocks for specifically so their clients can short stocks. And listen, I know it may seem weird that you can just borrow stocks that other people own. Don't question it, it's the stock market. This is something that massive hedge funds do all the time. It's a very good way to make a lot of money. And they've been doing this with, GameStop very prominently, but also like AMC, Nokia, and some other companies. They think a company is going to go down in value, so they borrow massive amounts of stock, sell it, buy it back when it's cheaper, give it back to the people they borrowed from. Now, the thing is that these hedge funds are so incredibly massive and have so much money to throw around that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it's not like it's very difficult to find out when a stock is being shorted. It is technically public information. And so when you find out that a big hedge fund is shorting a stock, you're not going to invest in that stock because you know that the price is going to go down because the big boys said the price is going to go down so they can make money off it. This contributes to the ruination of that company. Even though the stock market is very often like largely disconnected from the real world economy, this is a factor that makes a huge difference. Because the thing is, if you are a publicly traded company and you are in need of money for your operational costs, you need to buy popcorn for the theater, you need to pay your employees, pay rent, all that stuff, and you are short on cash, you can sell stock of your company in order to raise capital and do those things. But of course, if your stock is being shorted by massive hedge funds and the value of it goes down as a result of that, your stock is not going to be worth as much, and you're not going to be able to raise as much capital, which will drastically increase the chances that your business is going to go bankrupt. This is the point where actual, real people lose their jobs. This is why a lot of people think that shorting stocks should be illegal, which is a very controversial position for reasons that I will not get into in this video. All I'm saying is there are legitimate arguments on both sides of this issue. And now what basically happened is that Reddit, the Wall Street Bets subreddit specifically, saw that these big hedge funds were shorting these particular kinds of stocks, specifically the GameStop stock, betting against it, and so they went, I'll take that bet. So while these huge Wall Street hedge funds are betting against GameStop, Reddit is betting in favor of GameStop. So instead of the usual situation that would happen, wherein people stop buying this stock because they know it's being shorted, thus decreasing its value because it's not as popular anymore, Reddit buys all of this stock, right? The individual Reddit users, obviously not the platform Reddit. I probably should make that clear, even though everyone knows this. And because these Redditors are buying the stock, the price is going up, and because they are holding onto it, it is also going up. And it's going up by a lot. And now these huge hedge funds are in a bit of a pickle, because they will have to buy back those stocks at those massively increased prices to give them back to the people that they borrowed them from. And because they are greedy as fuck, they did this without concern for, actually being able to pay if they lose massively on this bet. So a lot of them are very likely to go bankrupt. Last time I checked, which to be fair was yesterday, they stood to lose about $70 billion to just fucking people on Reddit. Because, you can obviously lose an infinite amount of money, theoretically, if you short a stock, because if the price of the stock goes up exponentially, you lose all of that surplus money. And the longer the Redditors hold on to these stocks, the more desperate the hedge funds are going to get. So what's basically happening is that these massive, incredibly wealthy Wall Street hedge funds that have basically built the market in a way that will allow them to do any kind of manipulation with pretty much no repercussions are being squeezed out of tens of billions of dollars, which ultimately most of it ends up in the pockets of people who use it to pay their college debt, they use it to buy a new couch, maybe start a business, maybe afford insane medical bills. Now, it is at this point reasonable to say that the GameStop stock is in a bit of a bubble, which, to be fair, that actually, I cannot say that with any degree of certainty, just to make this clear. Many people are saying that the big squeeze is still about to happen, and they have very good arguments for why that is the case. But at the end of the day, this is still gambling. But the thing is, for most of these people, it's not even about the money anymore. Although, to be fair, probably a lot of them are still gonna make a lot of that. What they know is that the longer they hold on to the stock, the more bankrupt the hedge funds are gonna be. And while it was in the hedge funds, all of that money was just staying in the casino, essentially. It was just remaining casino chips, not doing any work in the actual real economy. But those billions of dollars liberated from Wall Street are already doing work and improving the lives of actual real people. Because when it's in the hands of average people, money has a lot more velocity, which means that it facilitates more transactions of goods and services, because if you get money, you're probably gonna spend it on whatever you want to spend it, right? But if some billionaire gets that, it's gonna just sit in their brokerage account and maybe get put into another scheme that isn't really something that exists outside of the stock market. This is one of the reasons why governments write stimulus checks, especially in this pandemic, because not only do they need people to obviously afford the bare necessities, but they also need people to spend money in order to get the blood of the economy flowing. And instead of waiting for lawmakers to basically try and like scam you out of even the tiniest amount of stimulus money and making you wait for it for as long as possible, Reddit just basically looted that shit from rich people directly by taking it from Wall Street. They just took the money from rich people in a way that is completely legal. Disclaimer, I am still not a lawyer. I want to just point that out again. But, pretty much all of the lawyers are saying this is people in the public, individual market actors, making decisions based on information that is public. If you make this illegal, you basically also need to make illegal all of the stock shows on CNBC where people recommend you buy certain stocks. This is like wealth redistribution in maybe its purest form. You could argue it's direct action, them plundering these hedge funds. This is what happens when you give average people access to the power of capitalism. It is also why I am not fundamentally opposed to the notion of capitalism. Capital, like political authority, is a form of power, and I believe that all forms of power need to be democratized. So for instance, back in the olden days, political authority resided with the aristocracy, like pretty much exclusively. So then we had a bunch of historical happenings where people went, I think maybe that authority should be something that like all of the people share, and that is why we get to vote in elections now. Now, of course, some people have more authority than others. It's not a perfectly equal distribution, which I would argue perfectly equal distribution may not actually be the most effective, but certainly it could be a lot better than it is now, but it is certainly a lot better than it was back in the time of absolute monarchies. This never really happened to that extent with capital. I mean, it happened to like a very limited extent, because much like capital has power over authority, authority also has power over capital. And as authority was democratized, so to a certain extent was capital. But it's not enough. The overwhelming majority of the capital still lies with the aristocracy. And by that, I don't, by the way, mean like, ye olden timies royal families, although certainly those are some of the richest families in the world, and they are much more secure and transparent in their wealth than, say, even Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. So what I think needs to happen is the same way in which political authority was democratized, capital needs to be democratized. Everyone, and I mean everyone, should own stocks and should be able to own stocks. Instead of 1% of society controlling the overwhelming majority of capital, capital should be owned by you and me and, our neighbors and our grandmas. You shouldn't own a lot of stock, but like a small portfolio, it's like the dividends you might get from that are almost negligible, maybe $60 a month, but you're probably going to spend those $60 and not have them sitting in your brokerage account on like actual things. Maybe you'll take out your family to a nice dinner once a month. That's money that goes back to paying wages and like buying products and keeping the economy going. If you ever get into financial trouble, you can always sell stock. Same thing happens if you want to make a major investment. Instead of being a casino where a very small number of people fuck over everyone else to make insane amounts of money that isn't even, in the realist sense of the word, real, capital should be an additional layer of financial security for all people and something that actually continues to fire the economy. In a way, everyone works for everyone else and everyone has a vested interest in seeing the economy flourish, which is the case for the overwhelming majority of people anyway. Now, before you say that this is some like libertarian shit, I also believe in very tight regulation of the stock market to avoid manipulations by anyone. I also believe that workers should own part of the company that they work at. I believe that they should have strong unions, a voice that must be heard. They should own stocks at their company always to also, in addition to wages, get a share of the direct profits. Now, I know that this runs against the exploitation of labor ideology wank, but frankly, I don't care about ideology wank, I care about policy. I believe in a strong social safety net and very high taxes on the rich. I believe, in addition to that, in universal basic income. Shit, I believe that there shouldn't be banks. I think all banks should be forcibly converted into credit unions, which will then de facto ultimately handle the stock portfolios of the average Joe, probably mostly by way of using index funds and stuff like that, and also provide additional ability to finance your business by providing loans, which especially like for instance in the United States, even though credit unions are a very, very small fraction of the totality of banking, they are actually responsible for almost half of the small business loans. But capital, in some form, is an unavoidable part of having an economy where people can start businesses. You can't start shit out of thin air, and you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And capital is an incredibly powerful tool to create prosperity. But like most tools, it can also be wielded as a weapon, which is what is happening right now and has happened for pretty much most of history, where the powerful capital aristocracy is holding you economically hostage by using capital as a weapon. The only way to turn capital into a tool that creates prosperity for all is by it being democratized in the same way that political authority was democratized so many years ago. And like one massive step in that direction is something we are seeing right now. Of course, Congress and the White House are already working frantically to make sure they can bail out and save those massive hedge funds, which basically just try to destroy several companies from like having had a bad outcome to a bet that they over-leveraged themselves on. And they will get just fuck tons of taxpayer money blown up their ass long before most Americans see even a cent of their stimulus checks. Big tech, of course, almost immediately consolidating behind Wall Street, with some notable exceptions. Discord, for instance, banned the Wall Street Bets Discord server for, frankly, bogus reasons. I mean, the reasons weren't bogus, but the timing. It was so, the timing was so, you know? And several trading apps have limited certain users' ability to buy these specific stocks but not sell them, which, once again, not a lawyer, but a lot of people who know a lot about this are saying that seems sort of illegal, especially considering that, you know, some of these apps are sort of owned by the same companies that own the hedge funds. But however this ultimately turns out, because at this point it can be anything, it's a victory. We the people, and that doesn't just mean like United States people, but people all over the world, have shown that you can seriously hurt Wall Street. And you can do this by playing them at their own game. With some of the analyses that are available to people on the internet, there is a low but non-zero chance that basically like half of Wall Street will have fallen into an inevitable downward death spiral by the time this video airs. I mean, they were so scared of this yesterday that they shut down trading. They can be beaten, they can be destroyed, and the folks who benefit from that are mostly just like average people, small-time investors, retail investors, as we call them. And that, I would say, is just objectively, unequivocally good. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection. And in that spirit, just as a also disclaimer, I don't have any stock in this. I haven't bought any stock because, to me personally, it's a significant amount of money. I am still in the precariat, and I applaud everyone who does do it, but I can't. The stock is at like $400 at this point, and that's not money that I can afford to lose. It might go up, but it's just a bet that I'm not willing to take, but then again, I am known to be a rather careful person. Also, you might have seen this yesterday with the, I did a community post because of the whole thing about, oh, community posts, they're so disproportionately favored by the algorithm, and apparently there's some people, like, I gained a bunch of subscribers because of that. It's the piece, it has like so much engagement than the average video, so apparently even after the video has come out that pointed this out a while ago, YouTube has not fixed this. So you can be sure that I'm gonna be doing that shit again. But maybe I feel like this time I should actually make it in some way interesting. Do some interesting polls that are actually relevant to you, the viewers, and the kind of viewers that I would like to attract. And in that spirit, see you around, cunts.